as you would have seen in probably the previous video of what I actually used in my hospital bag video, I said I'd be filming a couple of videos in one hit because Adam has got William and I'm just free for a little while. So I thought I'd do 2 videos that I think are quite important. This video is actually a bit of a raw video. It's something that I talk a lot about on Instagram. Again, if you want to follow my journey, follow me on Instagram. I tend to have moved a bit onto there at the minute. I'm happy on Instagram, so follow me at with Love Holly XO if you want to see updates on William and just see how he's getting on. I will eventually get back into vlogging with him, but at the minute we're still in a bit of a learning phase, and I will talk more about what's going on in just a second. So sit down, grab a cup of tea, and let's talk about motherhood and how I'm finding being a mum. Okay, so obviously, you know, I've been listening to a lot of podcasts recently about motherhood and things. Like, I'm a big fan on Happy Mum, Happy Baby from Giovanna Fletcher. I absolutely loved it. There was pregnancy books that I was reading that I loved, and it kind of had me prepped to what motherhood was going to be like. Now, obviously, I went into being a mum feeling like, you know, I'm going to be this mum that loves her newborn, that clings onto her newborn all day, wears him around in a sling. I was going to be, you know, very natural, very like maternal quite quickly. You know, I'd be so in love with him. I wouldn't care about the sleepless nights. I wouldn't care, you know, about I'd been being bottle or breastfed, this and that. And once I came home, then first 24 hours were tough for me. Really, really tough. Obviously, I just had a cesarean. I was really tired. I couldn't move. I wasn't allowed to move around very often. I was only allowed to stand up just to like give yourself that exercise to stand up and just walk to the toilet and walk back. All the other times I was basically on the sofa cuddling William. Now, for somebody like me who's very much likes to be on the move all the time, I like to tidy my house, you know, I like being out and about with my friends and family, to basically have that taken away because the birth itself wasn't what I wanted, it wasn't what I expected. I had a cesarean. That was traumatic in itself for me because I didn't know what I didn't know what to expect or anything like that. To then come home again and just be completely useless is what I'm trying to say. I felt just like a person sat on a sofa just holding a baby. I didn't feel like a mum. Like, in terms of what I thought being a mum would be like, you know, I'd get home within the first 24 hours. I'd be doting to my newborn. I'd be walking around with him in a sling. I'd be happy and smiley and have visitors come over and see him and cuddle him. And I'd be like, oh, it's amazing. Motherhood's great and I love it. And it didn't happen that way in the first 24 hours. And I was shocked by that. And I don't know why I was so naive to think that that's what motherhood was going to be like. It was the complete opposite. I came home, I felt awful. I just felt unwell. So the first 24 hours I was on the sofa in our front room because it was the most like perfect location really for me. I could still watch TV. We brought William's Moses basket into the front room so we were all together. I don't know, just for some reason at that moment the front room felt like a nice place to be. I believe it was probably more of the case of the sofa was easier for me to get up and down in, whereas the bed is quite low and quite squishy. I couldn't get up and down and I was crying. Even leaving the hospital, I remember trying to get into the car and I couldn't lift my legs to get into our car because we've got quite a big high SUV. And I was just sitting there crying. I felt useless. I just felt like I was somebody, like it was like an out of body experience. Even though I was sat there, my body was just so behind and delayed. I just couldn't do anything, and I just felt this overwhelming sensation of, is this going to get better? Am I going to feel better 24 hours in? So I think I started my motherhood journey quite negatively, with the idea in my head of what I thought being a mum would be about. You know, again, I stupidly would compare myself to people on Instagram, Facebook, you know, you watch TV and you think people are super mums, that they have a baby, they come home, you know, they get back to normal quite quickly. And obviously for somebody who had a surgery, I couldn't do anything for 6 weeks, and even then it's taken 8 weeks for my body to probably heal. So it was a really tough start into motherhood. We then had the obviously added issue that William had tongue tie. Now, for whatever reason, it wasn't sorted out when he was born. They noted it before we even left the hospital. Why they didn't do it then, we don't know. We obviously had problems with his feeding. You know, my boob and milk supply wouldn't come into effect either. And it only took about 4 or 5 days afterwards that my boobs, obviously, the milks wanted to come through. But because I was bottle feeding him, and we were kind of happy with that bottle feeding because of the tongue tie, he couldn't latch on to me anyway. I could have pumped. My head was not in it to pump. I can honestly sit here and say, when I look back on it, I do think, yeah, maybe I should have pumped. I should have done what I wanted to do. But I was so overwhelmed and tired because I didn't sleep for that first night in hospital. I didn't sleep for that first night when I got home. You know, I was just so in love with this little baby that I just wanted to hold him and not let him go. Or, you know, I was too scared once I held him, I couldn't put him back down. So it was a whole combination of this overwhelming sensation of being a mum and having this baby just in your arms and not being able to do anything. And I just remember that feeling. It's such a hard thing to describe, and I am rambling about it, but motherhood was not easy to start with, and the tongue tie didn't help. We were worried about his feeding. He was taking an ounce in 15 minutes, and he was making like so many noises, and his jaw was going because he couldn't like latch onto something, and it was awful. It was heartbreaking. We were worried, and it took 4 weeks for them to do the surgery on him. So it took a long time in our eyes for what felt like a lifetime. From 2 weeks in as well, we then had the issue of William has colic, quite bad colic as well. Both me and Adam would have to alternate nights, so I was sleeping from 7 o'clock in the evening and doing the night shift and vice versa 2 weeks in, but we'll come to that bit a little bit later. So obviously, yeah, I came home. First 24 hours were tough, hard. It is hard, girls. Let's not pretend. I know I'm not the only mum who feels that. Pretty much every mum probably thinks that 24 hours was the hardest 24 hours ever coming home. It got to a point that my mental health within a couple of days just dropped. I didn't have this overwhelming like love and sensation for my baby. I didn't feel maternal. I just felt like a person sat on the sofa holding a child, and that kind of started to worry Adam. I was crying every single day, every minute, every day. I was in pain. I couldn't go and shower. I couldn't lift my leg into the bath to have a shower. So thankfully my mother-in-law has a walk-in disabled shower, so I went and used that. But I honestly just felt a mess. I felt disgusting. I felt all over the place. Hormones are at a high once you've had a baby, and I'm not even going to sugarcoat that. They are at a big, big high, and it is overwhelming. And I don't think I'm the only mum who probably thinks that, but at the time I felt like I was the only person who wasn't enjoying having their newborn. It got to the point that Adam started to worry about me and think, you know, this is not like Holly. She's been looking forward to having a baby. We've been waiting for so long to have this perfect baby. And obviously all these issues that started to come up, jaundice, colic, tongue tie, but milk supply not coming through, no sleep, everything, it all become too much for me in one hit. My mum came and saved the day. My mum came and stayed with us for about a week. She helped me do the night shift so that I still felt like I had a purpose with William, because that's the biggest issue I'm finding, is when I had the cesarean, is I didn't have a purpose. Adam was doing a lot of the stuff for me, lifting, putting him down into his Moses basket, because I just could not lift and move, and it was horrible. And keeping up with my medications and things like that, because your head's all over the place. And it took a long time for me to feel like I was in control again. And I felt bad, and I kept saying to Adam, I feel like I'm relying on people, and I don't want to be relying on people. I want to be able to do this myself. I'm a strong, independent woman. Why can I not look after my newborn and do everything I can for my newborn. And I remember putting a post on Instagram saying that, you know, I sat on the end of my bed watching my newborn sobbing and I couldn't stand up to get him, and that broke me because I didn't feel like his mum. And even though, like, I look back at that now and I think, Holly, you did a cracking job, babe. You did it, you know, you did get up, you did try and do all these things. Your mum helped you and she gave you William. You still fed him, you still changed him, you know, you still cuddled him when he was screaming, and you're the only person that he wanted to be with, and you still did skin to skin and everything. I look back in it and I think, actually, I did a cracking job looking after my little boy with all the issues he had. I think I did bloody well at the start of motherhood, really. And at that minute, I didn't think it was right. And my mood kept getting progressively worse. And William started to get worse and worse and worse. The colic became more and more apparent. And, you know, I was getting advice left, right and centre, which I love Instagram for. You know, a lot of the girls that I talked to, they would give me advice what to do. He wasn't sleeping regularly, obviously. He's a newborn. He was feeding every 2 hours. That was stressful enough as it was, because obviously he wasn't taking milk properly. And then the colic got worse and worse and worse, and nothing was helping. All we could do was just walk around with him all day, all night, screaming. And it just got to the point that I was like, I can't do this. I cannot do this. And I remember the one night that it was, I think William was 3.5 weeks old, and I had done my first night shift. I'd started to feel better. I could be on my own. I could get up and down and walk around and things like that. And I felt, yeah, I'm in control. I've got this. And I took over from William from 3 o'clock in the morning all the way through till 7. Adam had just gone back to work, and he screamed and screamed and screamed from 3 o'clock in the morning till Adam woke up to go to work. And I literally came out of the bedroom and just threw the muslin that I had over my shoulder. I'd put William in his cot screaming, shut the door, walked out and just cried and said, I cannot do this. All he has done is scream. And I broke. I completely broke. I was on my floor sobbing and was like, I can't do this anymore. Why is he not sleeping? Why is he screaming constantly? There's got to be something wrong with him. You know, I'm not being a good enough mum. I'm obviously doing something wrong. Why does he not want to be with me? What have I done for him to hate me so much? And all these things were crossing my mind. And stupidly, obviously, I'm looking at people thinking, how do you want another baby? How are you looking and thinking, oh, I already want another baby 3 weeks in? And I'm like, I generally do not want any more children, and that hasn't changed for me. But again, that is something bigger that we will discuss as this video progresses. But I had just that horrible one night, and that was it. Enough was enough. I tried to get appointments with my GP. My health visitor kept telling me to talk to the GP. So I tried. I couldn't get an appointment. They wouldn't see William until my 6-week appointment. So this is coming into 4 weeks. The nights were getting worse and worse and worse. He was screaming and screaming and screaming and screaming, and it was all day, all night, constantly. I might have got an hour's gap in between when he napped, when the screaming stopped. And his sleeping was all over the place. It was waking up every 2 hours. It's just a typical newborn. That is really common for a newborn, and I expected for him to sleep for 3-4 hours. You know, I'd get a little gap, I'd have a little nap. But when you put them down to sleep, and obviously then the next feed's about 3 hours later, or 2 to 3 hours later, I maybe got 10 minutes sleep before he woke up again, because my body just couldn't settle that quickly to start with. So the sleep was 0. I was living on 2 to 3 hours sleep a night. Obviously, then it got to the point that Adam said, look, you go to bed at 7, do 7 till 12 sleeping, do 7 till 12 sleeping, then you take over and do 12 till 6, and we'll do it that way for now. So it meant me and my husband had no time together. We weren't talking to each other really. We would pass each other by at midnight, and he would say, right, William last took his feed at this point, blah, blah, blah. I did a nappy, he had a poo, blah, blah, blah. That's how it worked for us to start with. It was hard, it was tough, but that's what we did. I then downloaded an app, the Baby Plus app, which helped me and Adam out massively, because it meant we could look at the app and see the last time William slept and what routine he was in. Of course, As a newborn, he had no routine whatsoever, and it was just getting worse and worse and worse and worse. My emotions were getting worse. I had such bad anxiety of taking him out. I think at 5 weeks, me and Adam tried to go into town when the shops started to reopen. We just wanted to go for a walk in the afternoon in town, you know, grab a coffee. We lasted all of 35 minutes in town because William screamed the place down. He was screaming, and I remember standing in the middle of a courtyard in Kingston with my baby crying, and there was nowhere to sit because obviously they took all the seats away because of COVID, didn't want people sitting around and chatting. So I was standing under a shelter feeding him, and he was crying and crying and crying. I was getting this mum sweat that I call, you know, I was worried everyone was watching me. I had people like thinking people were judging me because my baby was screaming even though I was feeding him, and I was bouncing him around, you know, trying to keep him happy and calm. You know, he had a dummy which he couldn't take because of the tongue tie, and I just felt this overwhelming judging sensation that people were looking at me and staring at me going, make your child be quiet, and why is your child screaming? And I was thinking that in my head, when deep down, looking back at it again as somebody who's now 10 weeks in, I generally don't think a single person was looking at me in that way whatsoever. I probably think most people were thinking, do you need a hand? Do you need me to help? Because I was literally struggling a pushchair and holding William and feeding him, and Adam was trying to eat like have something to eat quickly, and I was in that mindset. I wanted to do everything on my own. I'm a strong, independent woman. I can do this. I couldn't do the first couple of weeks, and now it's my turn to take over and be his mum. When really I should have just taken the help that I could have. Adam kept telling me, look, let me do this, let me do that. No, I'm too stubborn, too strong-minded. I didn't want that. I wanted to do it all on my own. And looking back at it, I now know that I was stupid to think that I could do this all on my own. To those single parents out there that do it on their own, you deserve an absolute medal. You deserve everything in the world because you're gods to me. I should have accepted help. I couldn't do it on my own. My mental state at that point was not good. It was just getting worse and worse and worse. So the sleepless nights kept going and going and going. And it got to another night that I remember quite vividly. William was screaming and screaming and screaming. Like I keep saying, it was awful. Colic is awful. No matter what position you tried to burp him in, it wasn't helping. How you fed him, the milk, we changed milks, it didn't work. Using Infocol, Dentanox, gripe water, the whole shebang. Nothing was working to start with. Obviously it takes a couple of days for it to get in their system, but for me, I needed something quick and it wasn't working. I remember putting him in the kitchen and turning our washing machine on because obviously the noise, the white noise, he seemed to like that. He didn't like the white noise that you play on your tablet or Ollie Yow, didn't like that. But the tumble dryer and the washing machine he liked, so I put it on a spin cycle. You know, put his mother's basket in the kitchen and it was there, and he wouldn't settle. He was not settling still, and I was like, right, done everything I possibly could. I've fed you, I've changed you, I've burped you. There's nothing wrong with you. You're absolutely fine. I've given you a cuddle. You don't want a cuddle. You're just screaming. Put you in your Moses basket. I had to make a bed on my kitchen floor because it was the only way I could get him to be quiet, was if he was in his Moses basket on the kitchen floor and I was laying next to him in the kitchen with the spin cycle going. And Adam woke up the next day, came and found me, and that was it. Enough was enough for the both of us. I couldn't, that's the last straw. You're not sleeping on a kitchen floor. That's ridiculous, Holly. So I decided from there on to get some advice from sleep coaches, and I spoke to a couple of the guys that I know, and they honestly helped me out so much, and I cannot thank them. If you want a sleep coach, 100% you should get one, because they have changed my life completely. So from that moment, we got onto the Love to Dream website and ordered him the first size swaddle, the 0 to 4 month swaddle, and it's basically their arms stay up like that, and William sleeps like that anyway, whereas the regular swaddle is kind of like that. He didn't like that, and it used to make him worse and worse and worse. So I ordered that swaddle, and we started to get into what was known as a bedtime routine. Now, not as like a strict routine, like specific times, this and that. It was just done when the feeds and things he would feed. So during the day, we carried on as normal. He'd nap when he napped. He'd feed when he feed. Brilliant. And he still does that now. We're not in a routine in that sense. And then when it comes to the evening, so normally William takes a feed between 6 and 8. Like that, at the start, that's when he tends to feed. Now he's at about 6 and 7 o'clock is when he does his like bedtime feed. So my sleep consultant said to me, right, try and get into the habit of bathing him. Obviously not every day because he's newborn. So bath him maybe twice a week. Bath, book, bed. That is how you do it at night time. It's not playtime, it's not fuss time. It's bath, book, bed. That's what you need to keep it as. And I was saying to her, well, how will he know the difference between times? You know, that's the issue I'm finding, is he's sleeping a lot in the day, not sleeping very much at night, but I'm not getting any sleep during the day because my body can't do it. What do I do? And she said, so you need to make sure in the evening the room is dimly lit. So we have one night light that he has, and he still uses it now, which is over by his cot. The lullaby track from Olivier, which is an absolute godsend. The swaddle, the Love to Dream swaddle, and that is it. That is what he has in the bedroom now. So after his feed, about 6 o'clock, you know, we've given him a bath, he's all clean, he's just put into a new pair of pyjamas. We didn't give him his feed and we put him down. And, you know, it doesn't work straight away. And, you know, we were back and forth for a little while. Me and Adam were still keeping the same routine. So he would do from 7 o'clock to 12. I take over 12 till 6. And that's how we did it. And we, you know, it took till about him being 8 weeks for us to then start to change it a little bit. So he now has that same routine of he sleeps when, you know, sleeps when he wants during the day. And then he has his night time, and he tends to go to bed now at about 11 o'clock. That's when he goes to sleep. And he sleeps all the way through now until 7 o'clock in the morning, 6, 7 o'clock in the morning. And I give him a feed and he goes back to sleep till about 9, 10 o'clock. So now I'm nearly 10 weeks in. It's bliss. He's an absolute piece of cake now. I get full sleep during the night. It's absolutely incredible. But rewind it back to when we started doing this, and it was still very similar. We started to figure out his routine. I started to figure out when the colic was getting bad, what was going on. You know, we'd be given advice on the colic from the doctors because I'd just had my 6-week appointment. We changed his milk, which was a mistake. We should have kept him on the Cow and Gate Comfort. And that worked. The Cow and Gate Comfort with gripe water has been a dream. He is getting so much better. And he's not as grumpy as he was originally. He has his days, of course. And mentally, still, I just wasn't right. I felt like I just wasn't my old self. I was struggling being a mum. Again, I still was waiting for this attachment to my baby, and I wasn't feeling that attachment. I wasn't feeling like I deserved to be his mum. And there were many times that I thought he'd be better off if I handed him to somebody else. And that's when you know you're at a bit of a low. You need to get that looked at. So to the GP I went, I spoke about how I felt, and they got me a postnatal depression counsellor. I look at it now and I think, am I a maternal mum? Am I somebody that you think, you know, when you look at the ideal mum, is that you? And I definitely don't think that's me. I think if you did a test, like I think the Unmumsy Mum said on Giovanna Fletcher's podcast, you know, if you did a test now on if I would be a good maternal mum, I would fail it. I thought I'd be this mum that everybody wants to be and be this loving, maternal, happy mum. And realistically, it was the opposite for me. I'm not enjoying having a newborn. I'm not enjoying this phase with him. And people keep saying to me again, it's just a phase. And I keep telling myself it's just a phase, and you've got leaps to contend with, and growth spurts and teething that will start coming soon. And it's just a continuous thing with babies, all these things keep happening. You think you're getting into a routine, and then something else happens and it all changes again, and it's just madness. I'm just thankful at the minute that because of what the sleep coach told me to do, he's sleeping so much better. The boys have just got back. Now here he is. This is William. He is 10 weeks old and he is brilliant. You know, I will continue this video in probably a few more days, but let's just make this a little bit of a series. So that's how I felt in the first couple of months and couple of weeks of a baby. I'm going to make this quite a regular thing to do like a mini, similar to a podcast but obviously on YouTube. And I'm just going to make this a really open topic really. So this is part 1 of what I was saying, you know, about how I was feeling and the lows and stuff that I've been through, and I will continue this in a couple of days time. And just report back to you all. It's going to be raw, honest. I'm going to try and not edit it so that I keep things in there that, you know, I probably would miss out normally. But yeah, it's just, you know, I didn't feel this maternal sense of being a mum, and I still don't. I'm winging it every day like most people are. So I hope you did like this video. If you did, give it a big old thumbs up, and I will be back in a couple of days to keep continuing this motherhood topic. So thank you for watching.